Hello and welcome to the directcaster.com podcast. And my name is Rick, and today we're going to be discussing the Roku device versus the Android TV device and how you should choose the right streaming platform. So before we get started, if you are new to the channel, like and subscribe. We're happy to have you. We post weekly on this channel. We give tips, tricks for developing streaming channels, crucial key information, new techniques that we find, and we go over popular concepts. So we'd be happy to have you here, and like and subscribe if you can. All right, just a little bit about our company. We're a company that we have created a streaming platform. We can stream on Roku. We can stream on Fire TV, Apple TV, Android, mobile devices, iOS, Apple mobile devices, and Apple TV as well as Smart TV. So we're happy to have you here, and let's dive into today's subject. So everybody knows that the Roku device, it's a pretty well-known device. But we're going to talk about something today, and I'm going to talk about a little bit difference between the non-Google Android TVs and the Android TVs. So now what a lot of people actually don't know is that Android is not exclusively owned by Google. There is a version of Android, and that is a public version of Android that is not owned by Alphabet or Google. And that version of Android is maintained separately. And that's a type of operating system, and that is more of like a freeware operating system rather than a corporate top-owned down operating system like Google. So in the area of Android TVs, there are Google Android TVs, and there are non-Google Android TVs. So the easiest way to know the difference is nobody really offers a Google Android TV except for Google. So if the product is coming from Google itself, it's probably an Android TV. There were things like Chromecast. That was one branding of the Android TV from Google. There's also been other versions, even Android TV named version devices from Google. So if you see it being offered by Google, it is a Google-owned Android TV. If you want to get kind of what I consider the more freer version of Android TV, which is a non-Google Android TV, you can search, go ahead and search Amazon, for instance, for Android TV, and you will see that the devices being sold there are they're not Google devices. They're based on the publicly freeware Android operating system. So when we talk about non-Google Android TV, we're really talking about Android TVs that you could, for instance, buy off Amazon, and you buy a little box that looks a lot like a Roku box, and that box connects to your television and allows you to do very, very similar things to Roku. And today we're going to go over the differences between what that kind of non-Google Android TV can do and what a Roku can do. We're not discussing Google Android TV. I would say that it's a perfectly fine device. However, for today's topic, we'll just be discussing the kind of publicly available Android TV boxes, since they're just a lot more flexible and there's a whole lot more you can do with them. Once you get into the Google Android TV, it's fine, but it doesn't offer the same sort of flexibilities that we're going to be talking about today. All right, so we're going to go down to the first thing is we're going to go to content selection. So let's look at content selection today. Everybody kind of knows Roku. It's a big player in the game. And so when you're talking about Roku's advantages, you're talking about really a very well put together device. So just take a moment here. One of the reasons I always like Roku better than the other devices is Roku's entire business is a streaming device. They don't have their fingers in all kinds of other things. Like, for instance, Google will produce this and they'll produce that and they'll produce something else and they'll produce something else. And one of my main thoughts about Google is they often experiment with a lot of things and they don't really commit long term to many of those things. And Android TV for them is no exception. They kind of put effort to it, fits and misses. In contrast, the public freeware version of Android TV is well maintained by a very dedicated group of volunteers. So that's why we're talking about the non-Google today. But Roku is a very well-known device. Everybody knows it. It's great streaming quality and has a lot of channels available. So that's one thing you always look for in a device when you're going to get it. Does it have all the channels available? So yeah, it has all your big channels like Hulu and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus. It has all of these channels. And you can develop apps for it. So yeah, as far as Roku, definitely has a lot of content available. Now let's talk about non-Google Android TV advantages. So in the content area, non-Google Android TV provide a lot of content. Now, some would argue they provide even more content because they're not so limited, such as Roku, you have to be on their app store to be on their device. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but in non-Google Android TVs, it's a lot more freedom. Anyone can produce an app. It's very much a free universe. With that, it comes with a little bit more responsibility, and we'll talk about that, what you look for and not look for when installing Android TV devices. But as far as the content, I'm just going to be honest with you. The content is going to be very similar between the two. There's app stores that are available for on Google Android TV with, again, thousands of apps, just like the Roku App Store. So the only difference is, and we're going to talk about that in the next section called a hardware comparison, that the hardware of Roku does differ a bit from the hardware of Google Android TV. So one of the main things that you'll find advantage in Roku is that it does have the 4K capabilities. But I gotta, again, be candid. 4K is not for everyone, and if you're thinking about creating a channel, I kind of advise against going with 4K streaming because it's just going to cost you a whole lot more money to stream your content. So unless there's a really compelling reason to do 4K, we usually go with just regular HD quality. We find that's a really good quality, and it keeps your costs down. So if you're wanting to develop that channel, just a regular HD streaming channel tends to be the best. So the 4K feature with Roku is great if you need that sort of thing. The second thing that's a difference is that Roku is a known commodity. The company produces devices. Those devices are very reliable. They stream well in all conditions, and it's a really solid device. Now, with non-Google Android TV, a wide range of companies produce them. Companies in China, Vietnam, and Hong Kong. So we're talking about a lot of different, these devices are produced in a lot of different places. So what I say is if you're after a good quality non-Google Android TV, what I do is go to Amazon and I would look at the comments, and the higher the rating, the better the box. And look for a lot of comments, meaning a lot of people have bought the device and are overall very happy with it. So you're going to know that's a really good Android TV device to get. So in hardware, I would say they're pretty compatible. They have pretty much similar features. Roku doing a little bit better on the 4K, but then again, 4K isn't something a lot of independent channels really stream because of the high cost involved in streaming 4K, which usually make it a little bit, most people think about it quite a bit before they decide to go 4K streaming. You really have to have a compelling reason that you need that because your costs will double or quadruple, as 4K would indicate. So we usually recommend, as I said, just a regular HD quality. So now we're going to go down to the user interface and ease of use. So Roku has a very good user interface. One thing I'll say about Roku compared to other devices, one thing I love about the Roku device is they don't waste your time with a lot of content that you're just not interested in. The interface on Roku is really good. It puts the channels that you like up in the top, your channels, and it doesn't bother you and bombard you with all kinds of annoying ads that you have to scroll down, until you get rid of. This is the case with other platforms like Fire TV, even though Fire TV is a very good platform. They do tend to harass the user with a lot of things you might not be interested in before you ever can find the row with actually your channels that you've subscribed to in it. So, really good interface on Roku. I give it an A plus on its interface. The best one, especially for independent channel creators. When you're creating these channels, you want your customer on a device to get there very quickly and see your channel and click on it. You don't want them to be bothered by the devices, all the devices advertisements. So, oh yeah, well, Roku wants you to look at, Amazon wants you to look at this channel and take a look at this and that. But that's not what you're really interested in. You're interested in looking at your channel. So Roku does a really good job with that. Android TV also does a really good job with that. Again, the interface is very, very important. Tend to look at the comments. Find an Android TV that has really good comments. And again, most of them make it very easy to find your apps and the App Store, so that you don't have to be really bogged down with a lot of content you're not interested in. So again, on user interface and ease of use, I'll also talk about briefly the remote. The remotes are very similar. You're going to have a lot of the same features. Not all Android TV comes with voice remote, so do watch out for that. That is one thing that you can look at. Some of them do, some of them don't. If you're really into voice remote, again, Amazon, read the comments. Make sure when you read the features, it has a voice remote. So we're going to start getting into things that are actually more different between the two devices now. We've talked about a lot of things that are really quite comparable, such as content and the hardware. Those things are comparable. You're going to be able to hook that up. You're going to be able to see that very, very similarly on either device. We're now going to talk about App Store issues. And this is an area, as a channel developer, that we own this production system where it's a back-end cloud system, allows you to manage your content and the channels. And so we do this for ourselves. We own personally a lot of channels, and we do this for our customers who are independent content creators who create their own channels. And one thing I will start to say about it is that when it comes to the App Store, you don't really have the same limitations on Android TV as you do on Roku. And again, this is non-Google Android TV. So Android TV is a very, very free platform. You don't even have to be a part of the App Store. You can actually offer the app just as a download right off your website. So right there's a big advantage in getting your customer to come and install that app. It's much, much simpler. If you want the search power, the marketing power of an app store, there's plenty of app stores that also can handle that. And so you can have a lot of impact and a lot of coverage of your app out there through those app stores. And those app stores are nowhere near as picky as the major device makers. So the major device makers would be like Amazon, Roku, Apple, Google, and Samsung, or Smart TV as it is. So when we're talking about the app stores, Roku is actually the most friendly app store. So the process is pretty friendly. They don't get caught up on minutia and insignificant details. As long as you're not doing anything really crazy on your app, you're going to get your app through, and it's going to be there, and they're very transparent. I like Roku's system, but it is an app store. And so you are having to deal with the App Store. So when you have to deal with an App Store, you're actually dealing with individuals. So every time you submit an app to an app store, you're dealing with a person, because one person is assigned your case. Now, the personality of that particular individual that is assigned to review your case will determine how hard it is to get your app through the App Store. Now, we've had very little problem with Roku. They seem to hire, well-balanced individuals. They're not kind of hiring people like I would say that other app stores do that have chips on their shoulders. And so Roku's team is kind of a well-adjusted team. As long as there's nothing really crazy, you're going to get that app through and you're going to get it. And it's a very, very predictable process. Now, I do want to say, however, there are all the usual limitations of the app stores. There are regulations, there are rules to the app stores. And this is important, they always have the red button. So what do I mean by a red button? Well, the red button is the button that the App Store can push when it wants to remove your app from the App Store. And then all your marketing is poof, gone. So does this affect most people? Absolutely not. I would say 99.9% of the people never have this problem at all. But it does affect that 0.1% of the people. And what happens in those cases is that if you're producing anything that may offend the personality, and again, we're talking about the personality of the individual App Store reviewer, because you don't know what their ideology is, you don't know what their personality is, you don't know the things that they like, that they don't like, whether they're having a good day or not a good day. The company rules are always in the background. The policies are always in the background. However, and if an App Store reviewer wants to make your life miserable, they always can. And if a company starts to get pressure at their central headquarters, Roku, we get pressure at the central headquarters, take that app off because, we're a certain group and we have personalities and we don't like things. Well, then your app can always get X'd because of somebody somewhere saying something that they don't like things. And it also can happen when the App Store reviewer happens not to like things. So we always have that risk. Now, Roku is the lowest problems of all of the major devices. The highest problems, the highest amount of problems will come with Apple and Google and Fire TV. So they will give you the absolute most hassle about content. Now this is one good reason that we step you through the whole process. We have letters that we can submit. We have forms that we can submit on your behalf. We know how to get your content through. If you're trying to do this independently, sometimes it gets a little bit tricky, but no worries. But you do have those App Store reviewers. And unfortunately, it looks like in Fire TV and Amazon's case, that App Store reviewer just keeps on reviewing your app over and over and over again. So if you get one bad apple as this App Store person that works in there and they got it out for you or your app for some unknown reason, then you can have a lot of hard time getting it through. We do this. We work with people routinely for this. But the App Store issues are an issue, especially as you get into the other devices. Less so with Roku, but more with others. Now let's talk a little bit about Android TV, non-Google Android TV. There's no App Store. So right there, you're not having to deal with the personality problems. If you do, or the App Store policies. The other thing, since there's no central App Store, apps are installed directly on the device. And it's up to you to remove that app. So that app's not going anywhere unless you choose to remove it. No App Store is going to be zapping it off your device one day where you just load it up and wow, what happened to this app? Oh, well, suddenly I can't see anything. No, the App Store just zapped it off the device. Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with Android TV, non-Google Android TV. That app's going to be on there until you say it shouldn't be on there. So that's in my estimation, if you're looking for maximum freedom, Non-Google Android TV is a great way to have maximum freedom. People install your app and then they choose when they want to put it off, not some bureaucrat sitting in an office somewhere bending to pressure. So I think that's pretty important. Let's go over another item here, which is payment providers. So a lot of people are kind of shocked to learn that that Apple would, for instance, take over 30% and Google does the same of what you make on a subscription or an app purchase fee. So that's a lot of money. And they do that because they have the App Store and that's what they can charge. Roku and Amazon are usually a bit more reasonable. They take about 20%. I find that a much fairer trade. I think Apple and Google taking over so much percentage is, not so great. There's been bipartisan legislation in the Senate that tried to move forward. It was good legislation. It basically said, you know what? App stores cannot refuse to allow other payment providers to be on apps. So that you could go into, for instance, your let's say your Apple TV account, and you could find an app, and that app was maybe connected to Stripe, and Stripe was the payment provider. And you could use Stripe, and they punch in the number, and you know what? The person selling that app, the content creator selling the subscription to that app, only pays maybe 3% of what you're charged. So that's a good deal. If they go with Apple, they're paying over 30% to Apple. So it's either Stripe takes only 3% or Apple takes 30%. You'd say, well, I want Stripe because it only takes 3%. Problem is, when it comes to the app stores and app store devices, you can't do that. So there is a workaround for this. And the workaround is basically that you can have apps on all the app stores, and they allow you to put a code in the app that is purchased elsewhere. So someone purchases a code off of your website, and then you send it to them by email, and then you enter that code in on the app, and then you're watching the content. Now, that's the way it has to be done. But that's several steps. Website, purchase code, get email, whatever. So the app stores know this. So when it comes to payment providers, there's only really one way to do it on Roku and the other major device manufacturers is through their own app store or get a token. So technically, there's fewer restrictions on non-Google Android TV. They don't require that. They don't require the same thing at all. You could have a payment provider right on the device if you so choose. I will say this, so though in all full disclosure, we do not do that. We do a token. We do tokens for all apps, whether they're on Android or other. So for us, even though this technically is possible, we've standardized our systems, and we do the token. If you don't want to use the app store that you're on, there's the token. And we tend to pass around a token. Just know that it is possible on Google, on non-Google Android TV to use any payment provider you would like. And this is simply not the case on Roku. You must use their app store. Otherwise, you have to use the token system. So there's always a workaround, but it is a difference, again, where there's lots of restrictions on the App Store. And the biggest thing is the App Store is taking so much money away from your subscription. If you want to do that for less, what we usually advise people do is we put a system, help you put a system on your website that people buy tokens, and then the tokens go in the apps, and then the apps authorize, and you can watch the show. So we tend to find that's pretty good. And although the major app stores all do offer that, it certainly is easier on Android TV than others. So then we're going to talk briefly about updates and support. Not much to see here. Both of them really provide updates and support. Roku updates its product, and so does Android TV, non-Google Android TV. So really, updates and support are definitely better. So on these devices, I would say than even other devices, but both of these devices have pretty good support. So cost and affordability, and I would say again, the thing I'm going to look at here is that both of these devices are fairly affordable. I mean, Roku has a basic stick starting from the Roku stick starting over, 30 some dollars in general. You know, um, so they have a full line of products. It's not going to break the bank. Anybody can buy that. Same thing with Android TV. The difference with Android TV is that you are going to have to do a bit of research and you're going to have to watch that. Now, if you develop your Android TV with us, we do have recommendations and we tell you which products to recommend for your customers. That we can find that's very, very helpful. So again, we help walk you through that process and shepherd you through that. So let's talk about the final conclusions and takeaways. So when I look at Roku and Android TV, and when I compare Android TV against the other device makers, I see basically one thing with Android TV. Someone can put my app on Android TV box, and there's no bureaucrat sitting at the top of some company somewhere that decides that my app gets canceled. So that makes a Android TV highly resilient. So you're not going to, if someone has that device, and one option that we often say to our customers, go ahead and sell it as a bundle. Sell your channel and the Android TV as a bundle. This tends to work really well because that's a really great way to get an Android TV in the hands of your customers. And remember, as I was saying a little bit earlier, we do have recommendations for Android TV boxes. So if you'd like to develop an Android TV app, we have the pathway for you. So what does it come down to? The basic difference? Freedom. So if you could choose Android TV if you want content freedom, customization and versatility without a central corporation determining what you can or can't watch. All right, so freedom is one of the best reasons to do Android TV. Also, there's a huge amount of broad compatibility. Maybe someone doesn't have access to an app store. So you could have the app hosted on your website and they could just download it onto their Android TV. That's a very, very simple way of doing it. So accessibility, content freedom, and no centralized control. And the next thing we just have to say is ability to take payments on your own terms. You don't have to always agree to the App Store. But I will say that it does take a little more organization with Android TV. You have to know the devices. Your customers have to have devices or be willing to install devices. So it's very good. Roku is a great platform if you value simplicity and you need to gain subscribers. So your best content platform for gaining a lot of subscribers and keeping everything real simple is Roku. And what I do personally, what we do in our company, is we say 20% goes to Roku in the App Store. You know what they handle for that? All the customer billing issues, all the customer complaints, all the customer issues that they have with devices and everything. Roku handles that. So to me, that's worth 20% of what I'm charging. So only 20% of that subscription fee I'm charging, and I get all that handled. Otherwise, I would have to handle staff to do that. And we operate channels with tokens. And tokens are certainly possible, but there is a lot more customer service with a token. So most of the time, we let Roku and their App Store handle it, and we work with it that way. However, if I wanted content freedom, I would go with an Android TV. So this is the final bit. Why choose? If you want both of those things, then just go ahead and develop an Android TV right along with your Roku. Our system supports both. And you input it once in our system, and it goes out to both devices. So what I always recommend is, especially if you value content freedom and you want to make sure there's a platform there where your content is always going to be up and is not at the whim, and I mean the whim, of an app store or corporation or individual personality in the App Store, the App Store reviewer, then I would go ahead and get an Android TV at the same time, Android TV device for my channel, as well as the Roku. And we offer both. So if you're interested, go ahead and contact us. Go to directcaster.com to find out more. And we really thank you for watching this video. Again, if you like today's presentation, like and subscribe. And we'll see you during the next video. Thanks, and talk to you soon.